You think Ron Howard is Hollywood's nicest guy, the calm, gentle director everyone loves. But think again. Behind that polite smile lies a secret list. A blacklist of stars he swore he'd never work with again. These weren't just colleagues. They were friends, mentors, even heroes. They helped him win Oscars, then tore apart the piece he built his entire career on. From fiery egos to explosive on-set feuds, these are the moments that pushed even Hollywood's most patient man to his breaking point. Here are the top 6 actors Ron Howard hated the most. And trust me, you won't believe who made the list. Number 1. Jim Carrey. Ron Howard once joked that how the Grinch stole Christmas nearly stole my sanity. He wasn't exaggerating. What began as a festive fantasy in 2000 turned into one of the most chaotic shoots of his career. And the storm at its center was Jim Carrey. Brilliant yet volatile, Carrey spent 8 hours a day trapped inside layers of latex and fur. By day 3, he was lashing out at everyone. Makeup artists, assistants, even Howard himself. During one infamous morning, he ripped off his gloves and screamed, "You try acting inside a rubber coffin." The crew stood frozen while Howard tried to calm him down, but the tension only worsened. Carrey began improvising scenes, changing dialogue mid-take, and throwing scripts to the floor. It was like walking on broken glass, one crew member recalled. The ever-calm Howard reached his breaking point and quietly met with Universal executives, warning that the production was spinning out of control. The studio's solution? Hiring a Navy SEAL survival expert, the same man who trained soldiers to endure torture to help Carrey cope with the costume. By the end, Howard looked years older. The movie became a Christmas classic, but privately he admitted it had drained him. When asked about Carrey, he smiled and said, "He brought a lot of energy." Off the record though, he confessed that film aged me a decade. Carrey later joked on the Graham Norton show that makeup was like being buried alive every day. "I went a little Grinchy." But behind the humor, both men knew the experience had scarred their working relationship. They've remained cordial but distant ever since. In 2020, when asked if he'd ever direct Carrey again, Howard simply said, "Jim is brilliant, but some brilliance burns too hot." Number 2. Cillian Murphy. If there is one thing Ron Howard values above all else on a film set, it's discipline, calm, order, collaboration, the quiet rhythm of professionals working toward a single vision. So when he cast Cillian Murphy in his 2015 survival epic In the Heart of the Sea, he thought he'd found a perfect match, an actor of intelligence and restraint, someone who shared his commitment to authenticity. At first that was true. Murphy called Howard the kindest director I've ever worked with, and during early interviews he seemed to revere him. But as production dragged on, months of starvation diets, open water shoots, and endless cold, the admiration turned to friction. The film demanded the cast survive on 600 calories a day to look convincingly emaciated. They spent hours soaked, shivering, and weak. And while Howard's camera demanded more, Murphy began to feel less like an artist and more like a lab rat. "He pushes you past what feels human," Murphy reportedly told a friend after one of the long tank sessions. "You trust him, but some days you just want to scream." Howard, ever the diplomat, saw things differently. In a 2016 interview he said, "Cillian is fiercely dedicated, but I think he sometimes mistakes intensity for conflict. I push because I believe in what my actors can give." That push became the heart of their quiet feud. Murphy, known for his precision, wanted control over the psychology of his performance. Howard, known for his detail, wanted control over everything else. "He'd do 5 takes and say again," Murphy once recounted. "At some point, you start wondering if he's seeing what you're feeling." Their tension peaked during a brutal sequence where Murphy's character collapses on a lifeboat. After hours in freezing water, he refused another take. "I'm done," he said. Flatly. "If you want it colder, you can play the part yourself." The crew went silent. Howard, maintaining composure, simply replied, "We'll warm you up, then finish." They did. but the warmth between them never returned. When the film wrapped, both men kept things professional. In press tours, Murphy smiled through questions, calling Howard a true craftsman. But years later, when asked if he'd work with him again, he paused and said, "Ron expects absolute surrender. I'm not sure I have that to give anymore." Howard's response given in a 2021 podcast was classic Ron, measured but revealing. "Cilly is brilliant, but some actors confuse discomfort with discovery. For me, they're often the same thing. Did the feud ever truly end? Not officially. They haven't spoken publicly against each other, but neither has mentioned the other since." There were rumors Howard wanted Murphy for 13 Lives in 2022, but the offer never reached him. Number 3. Russell Crowe. When Ron Howard called Cinderella Man the toughest film of my life, he wasn't exaggerating. The reason had a name: Russell Crowe. Their partnership began with promise. After the critical triumph of A Beautiful Mind in 2001, which won 4 Oscars and cemented Crowe as one of the greatest actors of his generation, the two men seemed destined to become Hollywood's next powerhouse duo. But behind the curtain of success, tension was already brewing. Even on A Beautiful Mind, whispers circulated about quiet clashes over creative control. Crowe was deeply methodical, demanding to live inside his characters. Howard, ever the calm architect, valued discipline, precision, and order. For a while, they balanced each other until Cinderella Man pushed both men past their limits. Filming began in 2004, and from day one, the set felt like a pressure cooker. Russell walked on like a general ready for war, one crew member recalled. He didn't want to be directed. He wanted to command. Crowe questioned lighting, camera angles, even the timing of emotional beats. During one intense boxing scene, witnesses say he shouted across the ring, "You don't understand the character's pain." Howard's response was pure restraint. He didn't yell. He just stared tight-lipped, unmoving. But that silence, crew members later said, felt louder than a scream. As production dragged on, the tension deepened. Crowe insisted on reshooting entire. "Ron and I have different rhythms," he admitted years later. "He's meticulous. Every shot measured, every emotion planned. I'm chaos. I have to feel it in the moment." We just collided. Insiders say their final conversation after Cinderella Man was polite but final. No shouting, no insults, just exhaustion. They shook hands, promised to stay in touch, and never work together again. Over the years, time softened the edges, but not the distance. In 2019, when asked if he'd ever direct Crowe again, Howard's answer was telling: "Russell is a force of nature. You don't direct a force, you survive it." Crowe, meanwhile, paid respect in his own way. In a 2020 interview with the Sydney Morning Herald, he said, "Ron's one of the best. We just approached the mountain differently." Number 4. Tom Cruise. It's hard to picture Ron Howard, the soft-spoken, steady hand behind Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, locking horns with anyone. But in 1992, on the sweeping Irish epic Far and Away, he met his match in Tom Cruise, Hollywood's unstoppable force of energy and ego. At the time, Cruise was untouchable. He'd conquered the box office with Top Gun and earned respect with Born on the 4th of July. Howard, meanwhile, was building a reputation as the director who could control chaos, a quiet perfectionist who found clarity through calm. On paper, it looked like a dream collaboration. On set, it became a slow-burning war. From the first week of filming in Dublin, the tension was palpable. Cruise wanted to feel everything. He wanted sweat, screams, fury, the pulse of life in every frame. Howard wanted the opposite: patience, precision, subtlety. The two clashed on how to find truth in a scene. During one rain-soaked take, Cruise stopped mid-shot, ripped off his gloves and shouted, "This doesn't feel real." Howard didn't flinch. "Real isn't about noise, Tom," he replied quietly. The air froze. Even Nicole Kidman, caught between them, tried to smooth things over, but the damage was done. Crew members described the atmosphere as like a boxing match without punches. Crews started rewriting lines, demanding new takes, and arguing that Howard's direction killed the fire. Howard's trademark smile began to vanish. He began shooting extra coverage behind Cruise's back just in case the actor changed his delivery again. In post-production, insiders say Howard referred to the film as a marathon of control disguised as collaboration. When Far and Away premiered, critics praised its scale, but noted its uneven tone, a reflection perhaps of two visions pulling in opposite directions. Asked about the experience months later, Howard kept it diplomatic but sharp. Some people confuse passion with chaos. He never mentioned Cruise by name, but everyone knew who he meant. Cruise, for his part, didn't hold a grudge, at least publicly. In a 2002 interview, he called Howard a consummate professional, but added with a grin, "We just see filmmaking differently. Ron wants control. I want combustion." The two men have never worked together since. When Howard was asked in 2019 if he'd direct Cruise again, his answer was measured but final. "Tom's intensity is extraordinary. But sometimes the energy on set needs to flow in more than one direction." Number 5. Chevy Chase. Ron Howard has always believed filmmaking should be about balance. Calm leadership guiding creative chaos into order. So when Universal suggested pairing him with Chevy Chase for a big-budget comedy in the late 80s, Howard didn't even think twice. He refused before the first meeting. His words to producer Brian Grazer were blunt. "I won't babysit a hurricane." By then, Chase's reputation for being difficult had already spread across Hollywood. On Saturday Night Live, he'd fought with castmates and directors. On film sets, he was known for walking off mid-scene, mocking co-stars, and clashing with producers. Howard, who valued harmony above ego, wanted no part of it. When Chase heard about the rejection, he reportedly scoffed at a party. "Howard only works with nice guys. Must be boring as hell." Howard's reply was cool and cutting. "That's exactly the point." The remark summed up everything about their divide. Chase thrived on chaos. Howard built his career on control. Decades later, when Community reignited stories of Chase's temper, Howard was asked if he'd ever direct him now. His answer was quick. "Some chaos isn't worth capturing on film." They've never worked together, never reconciled, and likely never will. In the end, Howard chose peace over